Thank you, Jeff. It is such an honor to be here. I must say, a little bit dubious to have to follow Representative John DeBerry. My, wasn't that a great message that we just heard? And I want to begin by just acknowledging the great work that the Tennessee Firearms Association does and the work that John Harris does and the commitment that he's had over these many decades to work to support, to defend the Second Amendment. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you, John. It is a great honor to welcome you to the 6th District of Tennessee. And it's my great honor and privilege to represent the good people that live in part or all of 19 counties that I get to represent, reaching from the east bank of the Cumberland River over close to the Titan Stadium and all the way over to Scott County in East Tennessee. And, sometimes people say, man, that's a rough district, and why did the legislature do that to you? And I say, for about 2 months earlier this year, and I see Mark Green over here you're going to hear from shortly, and Diana Harshbarger and Andy Ogles, when the General Assembly, in their infinite wisdom, redistricted our great state 2 or 3 years ago now, and they gave Mark and Andy and I each a piece of Nashville, and in doing so, we're ensuring that we would have not just 7 Republican U.S. House members, but 8. Some people thought, well, maybe that's not a good idea. But for 2 months earlier this year, that was the difference between Republicans being in control in the House and not being in control. So let's give those legislators a big round of applause for having the courage to take that important step. We're all here today to talk about the Second Amendment to the Constitution and the other rights that surround that important right. Second Amendment is 27 simple words. It's hard to believe how efficient our founders could be with the use of the English language. We could all probably learn a bit from them, and I'm going to try to learn a bit today by not taking too long to address you. But those 27 words are so important, as I know everyone in this crowd understands, because those 27 words and the rights given to us by God that they embody and are meant to help secure are indispensable to us preserving everything else that is precious to us. When the founders gave us the Constitution, and what an elegant piece of work that is, they put in it, or they later added, I should say, the Bill of Rights. And of course, many of those rights we depend on every day. You know, for a long time, I heard growing up, and I suspect everyone here has heard this admonition that the judge of a person's character is what they do when no one is watching. And there's a lot of truth and wisdom in those words. But I would say to you that when it comes to the Second Amendment, maybe we should turn that on its head and say the measure of people who support the Second Amendment is what are they willing to do when everyone is watching to defend the Second Amendment. In recent days, yet again, this country has suffered the indignity of seeing violence happen and innocent lives taken. And every time that happens, there are way too many people in our society and culture, in our government and leaders across this country who are willing to rush forward and say, we have to suspend this important freedom, this important liberty. We cannot trust the people of this country to hold and bear arms. And I say that it's in those moments that it's so critical that people like those assembled here today step forward and proudly say, we will defend the Second Amendment in the face of these awful actions. You know, if you think about it, the First Amendment that preserves many rights, but among those obviously is the right to free speech. And we all know that while those rights were hard won by those who put their lives in harm's way to win the independence of this country, and those who've died since, and those who stand in the field of battle today to defend that freedom of speech, we all pay a price for the First Amendment. Right? We all pay a price, and sometimes it's a horrific price. We have to endure the indignity of people saying things that we'd rather not hear, and sometimes those words can be very hurtful. Sometimes what we hear offends us greatly. Second Amendment is the same way. It's an important right, but it comes at a price paid by those who defend the liberties of our people and this republic, but also a price that sometimes every citizen may be called to pay when others among us choose to use those freedoms to do evil. It's a heavy price. Thankfully, it's one I've not been called on to pay, and everyone in this room probably has, frankly, avoided having to pay that price. But some of our fellow Americans have had to pay it, and some of you may have family members who've had to pay that price when one of our citizens takes matters into their own hands and misuses, if you will, their freedoms to do harm. We can't then allow the leaders who are feckless among us to step forward and say this is a time to take away that right, because we know, the people in this room know that the Second Amendment is what allows us to secure the freedoms and liberties that are represented in the Constitution. And we need to make sure that we do everything we can to push back against anyone who would try to tear that freedom from our hands. I appreciate the efforts that you all make, opening your wallets, your pocketbooks to help support not only politicians and representatives in your local, state, and federal government who step forward to defend the Constitution, but I appreciate your willingness to come out on a day like today when you could be doing many other things, but you've chosen to be here and work to defend and support those who are defending the Second Amendment to the Constitution. It's a great honor to be here, and it's a great honor to represent the 760,000 or so people that comprise the 6th District of Tennessee. And I assure you that as I go forward in my work, I'm going to continue to support legislation and other initiatives that will make sure that we do everything we can in our time to secure and defend the Second Amendment. But I also want to say how important the efforts of the Tennessee Firearms Association are, because one of the rights that we frankly have not fully secured here in Tennessee is the right for everyone in this room to carry a firearm. And so I want to make it very clear today that I support constitutional carry. And that is the God-given right of Tennesseans. And we have to do everything we can as your representatives to make sure in the future that constitutional carry becomes the indisputed law of Tennessee. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.